This is Brian Meador from East Carolina University. You are listening to the Sports Objective, the official, unofficial podcast of the Pirates.
Welcome into the Sports Objective, another great episode. With us right now, we have Kyle from LaGrange Barber. How are you, dude?
What's going on, Dave? Sitting here on a Thursday night waiting for my wife to get home from open house. They had open house tonight from Lenore County Schools from 5 to 8, giving the parents a 3-hour window. So I'm starving.
I don't feel guilty because I did that pre-show. I took care of the duties for both my son and daughter's schools, and now I'm back and got back home about an hour before the show. Bubba Rosenbaum, how are you, sir?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Doing great. Very excited. 1 week, guys, away from week 0. Very excited. And Bubba, we've been wanting to have this is on our bucket list to have our next guest, and we finally worked our schedules out.
Absolutely. Here we are, just a couple weeks from kickoff tonight, actually, against App State down at Bank of America Stadium. I thought it's an excellent time to have this guy on and welcome in the chairman of the ECU Board of Trustees, Scott Shook. Scott, we appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. I was just looking at your intro there and seeing the film of Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium full. Boy, I do sure look forward to that this year, and anticipation is building, and I can't wait.
Yeah, let's start off there. Well, Bill Clark Holmes talking about filling up Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium with the huge donation, and thanks for Bill Clark Holmes for buying out the upper deck and making sure we're gonna fill the upper deck up with I guess first responders and such for the South Carolina game.
Yeah, that's a big deal, and look, hats off to Bill Clark and the whole family. They've been tremendous Pirate supporters for years, and you go around the campus and see everything that dons their name, and and Lance Clark, Bill's son, serves on the ECU Pirate Club board, and he's done a tremendous job kind of behind the scenes helping to raise a lot of money and doing not only that with his family, but going out and getting other Pirates back in the fold and doing some things. And what a tremendous class act by that. And Ryan Robinson, I know with the Pirate Club is on board now, is working day to day to help pull that off. And I think we're in a great spot with our leadership in the Pirate Club. And it's nice to see old Pirates stepping up and doing that. And hopefully we can bring a bunch of first responders, kind of thank them. They're kind of getting kicked around right now. I mean, this COVID stuff is snapping back and hospitals kind of filled up. And, morale's kind of tough over there, but they're fighting through it. So anything we can do to help them forget about it and see a good old-fashioned butt whipping in Dowdy-Ficklen Stadium, I'm all for it.
I definitely am. I'm just excited the fact that South Carolina's not backing out like a couple of years ago, where that we had to get no offense to Gardner Webb, but we were supposed to have them in 19 and that we didn't. And so I'm glad that they are going to come. And you know what? That's a huge game. That's a really big game. And I feel like that game is big for East Carolina, but it's also big for South Carolina. If they want to go to a bowl game, both schools, they need that win. So it's going to be, for a lot of people, they need to come to that game for many reasons to have an SEC school come. South Carolina I think it's a regional rivalry, and they're going to bring a lot of fans. You better believe that South Carolina travels very well. So we need a lot of purple and gold in the stadium, right, Scott?
Absolutely. This is the 30th anniversary of the Peach Bowl year, and I was a student back then, and we lost the first game to Illinois on a bull crap call. We all know it was. And we looked back and we saw that. And then we started winning a few games. Everybody thought, hey, we can be kind of special this year. But I don't think we really knew how special it could be until South Carolina came to Greenville. And we handed them their hind parts on the field that day. And that was great. I had some friends from Raleigh come down. And one guy brought his girlfriend, who's now his wife. And she was a South Carolina fan. And she was in the middle of the old student section over there. And she was a little bit more quiet there towards the end of the fourth quarter that day, and boy, we had a lot of fun. I think this game, this season, the way things are shaping, it's got a real good vibe about it. I've got a good feeling about that. There's a lot of symmetry there, and I think South Carolina's beatable, and I think that, the team, and I know you guys have been watching their interviews and that type of thing, something seems tremendously different than in years past. Just the attitude's different. There's a swagger. I don't know what our record's going to be, but I like what I see.
How about Coach Houston? Tremendous job. And speaking of John Gilbert, we like John. He's come on our show a lot. And Ryan, very transparent, been great to us, not only for the show, but great at the university. And the very first hire they made was John Gilbert. John Gilbert was Mike Houston. And just from that point forward, I really love what they've been doing with the administration because with Houston, getting him, I remember being invited. I worked there, but I remember one night Kyle texted me and said, "Oh my God, we just lost Mike Houston to Charlotte."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and I saw the story and I was really upset. And I was like, come on, we've got to get, how can we get Houston? How can we get Houston? And then, I'm sure they're not going to be exchanging Christmas cards in Charlotte and with Mike Houston, but I'm just so grateful that all that worked out because that's the guy that we wanted. And it's really cool now, Scott, I just want to say this across the board. It just seems like you were talking about with the football team, with the chancellor we have now, with the athletic administration now, trustees. It just seems like there is a positive vibe now that we didn't have in years past. And some of that was maybe some people's fault and some whatever, but it just seems like things are starting to come together as far as a fan base. Everything it seems like you hear about right the ship. It's finally starting to seem like the head in our favor. Yeah.
And a lot of things in the past that were being done, and obviously there'll be books written about that kind of stuff. Right. But, there are a lot of stuff that went on that weren't positive, but a lot of things that happened were laying the seeds to where we stand today. And hiring of Houston was one. And I was, I thinking I would love to have him, but I don't know that we could land him, at the time. I mean, we'd won 3 ball games in 3 years and in a row. And I remember commenting to somebody, I said, "What do you think about Houston?" I said, "Well, he lost 6 ball games in 3 years, and we lost 3 ball games or 6 ball games this year and only played in 3 games." So, he's coming from a winning tradition. He's won wherever he's been. And to land a guy like that, a quality guy that knows how to get it done here, it was huge. And that was a big weekend. You hire Gilbert and you hire Houston all in one fell swoop over a weekend was huge. And that came on the same weekend. We just got our butts handed to us by NC State. And it wasn't a contest, and that was a low point. And to be where we are today, I think is a big turnaround. But you're right, kind of leading back to the administration, it starts at the top with Philip Rogers. And, Philip and him and I spent some time in the General Assembly on Tuesday, just kind of walking the halls, thanking the General Assembly members, all Republicans, Democrats that voted for the budget that has in it the Brody School of Medicine money. That's $200 and some million to build a new building. And look, we're getting this, and the Speaker of the House co-sponsored legislation for it. The Senate put it in their budget. The governor supports it. The president of the UNC system supports it. It's in the Board of Governors' legislative priorities, and they passed it in the House and in the Senate, and we didn't have to go to Raleigh and threaten to kill anybody. I mean, normally to get something that the largest capital project this year in the budget, for universities, and it happened. And it happened because of all the right reasons, but we've got a lot of momentum on our side in about every area that you look. And it's going to be led by Philip, and he's doing a tremendous job. To start with, he's been throwing a lot of curveballs as anything. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff to fight through, but that's life, right? I mean, we always have that. But you're right. The tenor has changed from top to the bottom.
Really happy about that, especially with let's go back to before we get to more on me bragging about Dr. Philip Rogers and the job you guys have been doing as trustees. Let's talk about your past. You mentioned something I wanted to hit on that maybe people don't know, that you being a student, we know how you're definitely Mr. Purple and Gold. Mm-hmm. We were talking pre-show in the green room about tailgating. I'm very excited. We can talk about that in a little while, but talk about your experience at East Carolina, because, when you hear about that old t-shirt that UB used to have back in the day of ECU is the 4 and it had a slash to it, 6 years of your life. Yeah. I mean, I had such a great time. The 90s were very good to me. Not that I want to go back to the 90s, but the 90s when I was at ECU from 91, actually, I'm sorry, I transferred in, but I graduated in 95, but having a few years at ECU, 3 years there was tremendous, my sophomore through senior years. And then the rest of the 90s living in Greenville. That's the kind of stuff that not to relive the past, but I know that we can do a lot better, not only at Greenville, but at ECU.
Yeah, and I'm like you. I came to Raleigh and went to Lewisburg College out of high school and transferred in myself in the spring of 1990. And I came down here like a lot of people. Brooklyn Triangle may have pulled for another team and that kind of thing. I wasn't ingrained. I had friends that were at East Carolina, but I came to East Carolina to for a student and to get a degree in economics. And while here, and it was during the Peach Bowl year, and all that happened, I became a pirate. And there's a difference. So there's people around here that grew up here that were always been pirates, but some of us come here from other places. You come to ECU, but there's always that moment when you become a pirate and you cross over. And once you're a pirate, it's all done. You burn up all the old allegiances and everything else. And I graduated in '93. Got a job with old Wachovia Bank here in Eastern North Carolina, and went to places like Williamston and Manio and
there you go,
Oski, and there you go, and then ended up coming back here with Bank of America Investments at the time in 2003. And had been living back here now with, was BB&T Investments, now it's Truist Wealth. So, as a financial advisor here in town, but been back in town since 2003. And my dad still lives in Raleigh. I have friends that live in Raleigh. And whenever I cross I-95, I get the heebie, I can't stay over there very long. I wouldn't leave Raleigh for all the money in the world anymore. It's not my hometown anymore. Home is Greenville. We're Pirates. And people ask me, how do you like it? I said, I love it. I live 10 minutes from the tailgate. So
Scott, we mentioned Philip Rogers earlier. Obviously, Philip, I don't think he's been here long enough to judge anything he's done yet, but I'd say so far so good. But John Gilbert's been here now a couple years. How would you evaluate the job John Gilbert's done over the last couple years with the athletic program? Obviously, he came in, took over a tough situation. Kind of got left a dumpster fire by Jeff Confer. How would you evaluate the job Gilbert's done over the last 2-3 years?
I think John Gilbert's done as solid a job as I think we can ask for. You're right. His situation was tough when he got here for a lot of reasons. Anytime we lose football games like that, I mean, we're a culture surrounded by football. We'd struggled for a long time, and morale's low. Everything, and taking over that, and then coming in trying to build it, and then getting hit with the whole COVID year last year from a financial rate. And I don't know if you remember, some of the first estimates we got coming into this were, the athletic department may lose, $25 million. Okay. And you're forced with then having to play games when you don't get any revenue, how difficult. I mean, we need revenue, and we need fans in the seats. That's our business model, and being able to navigate the losses aren't anywhere near that. They're a whole lot less of that number. It's sustainable. So to guide us through that environment to get us where we are, I think he's done a tremendous job. And I've gotten to know John, fairly well. He's very easy to talk to, and he's got a great demeanor about him, but he also has a lot of contacts and connections in higher education and in the Southeastern Conference, and has a lot of experience. And so, any athletic director the last couple years at ECU's had a tremendously hard job. I think he's done a great job of doing that.
Yeah, and I would agree overall. Just to get your thoughts on this, him and Ryan both. Ryan's an outgoing guy. He's had a lot on his plate, taking over the Pirate Club, other responsibilities before that. One thing that I've been critical of John Gilbert on, and will continue to be, and it's not even a criticism. It's more of I guess an evaluation of his personality. There's no rah-rah to him. That's the one thing that I do think we're missing. Is we need somebody, and I think Houston does a little bit of this, but Houston just, he's a football coach. We need somebody out front, kind of getting everybody together, not just behind the scenes, talking to donors one-on-one. We need that out front voice to get everybody fired up and together in Pirate Nation, to get everybody excited, in my opinion. And winning cures a lot of that. But that's the one thing that I think we've been missing the last couple of years. Terry Highland, everybody's opinion is different, but Terry Highland, at least to the common man, he had the ability to make you to really make you believe and get you fired up and get you going. And that would be my one. And again, it's not even a criticism of John Gilbert. I think it's just he's a more reserved person. But
And you're right about Terry Holland. I mean, Terry Holland wasn't a fire and brimstone kind of guy, but he knew how to throw some zingers out with the best of them, and he didn't mind mixing it up. And I think and I don't disagree. Our personality is probably a whole lot alike when this. I mean, Pirates walk around with a chip on our shoulder. We're always kind of on that edge and getting fired up. And I agree. Past couple of years, if you had somebody like that, it's not a whole lot to cheer about because you can't come in the stands, you can't do things, you got locked down. So, let's win some football games, and I think the swagger will come back in Pirate Nation. And so we'll see who that, how those personalities play out over time. But I like Houston's ability to be able to do that. He's very matter of fact and very, very pointed. And I love his attitude about how he wants to play, and I think culturally that fits. And I agree with you about Pirate Nation. We line up behind people like that and programs behind that, but we'll see where we are when things get back to normal a little bit. But
Scott, one of the questions I wanted to ask you pre-show ahead of time was about the guys teased me about it, but I really want an indoor practice facility. I've increased my level of giving the Pirate Club because I really believe in our school to the point of probably more than I should spend. But at the same time, I want to put my money where my mouth is. I think East Carolina is, I hate the term Power 5. I think we are that, and we should, for anybody to call us a small school, I hate when I hear stuff like that, or I know the guys don't like the term mid-major, that kind of stuff. Can we go ahead? I know that, and I'm actually giving credit to the administration and athletics that they are working behind the scenes. I know on the indoor practice facility. Can we go ahead and at least put the idea out there? Hey, we need to raise guys. We're talking how much, I don't know how much it'll be. Say if it's a $20 million project, or who knows what the way construction costs are.
I think Coastal's doing one for $12 million, Dave.
Yeah, and So first of all, we need to determine. First of all, let's say this: the need is well known. There are discussions about options and what to do and how to get there. And I think that we're early in that process, but this will play out. It will happen. I don't have a time frame. I don't have a time horizon on that, but so we have to determine what kind of facility. So you can look at, say, South Alabama, that built one that is kind of an indoor-outdoor. It's a covered facility with open sides, so you don't have the HVAC system that are in that type of environment because it's not fully enclosed. If you talk to Coach Houston, he'll say, as long as I can play in there when it's lightning, that's what we want. In my opinion, if those buildings are probably going to be in the $8 to $9 to $10 million range, depending on what all kind of bells and whistles, site work that you have to do and that kind of stuff. You going up from there and whatever you want to spend, right? You get a fully encapsulated one, you're probably talking mid $20 million range. So obviously, we would build what we could raise. But I think that, and this is me personally speaking, on behalf on the board or anything else, this is a priority personally that I have and want to see happen. And whatever it takes to get there, but this is not going to be one of those things that you can go out and get pledges and raise money for and finance. This is going to be a thing we're going to have to raise money for and build it.
Scott, Georgia State building a new basketball arena down in Atlanta, and they're using some education funds from the University of Georgia system, or whatever they call their system, by putting classrooms and such, research labs in the basketball facility. There's going to be an arena with classes attached. Can we get creative and do anything like that with an indoor practice facility? Could we add some classrooms and such to it to use some education funds to help build the thing?
There's been all kinds of thoughts and ideas around that, and sure, some of that would need Board of Governors support and approval to be able to use university funds for some of that. If we raise some things through the Pirate Club, we could just build it locally, from what I understand. So sure, there's everything's on the table, Kyle. and what can happen and what the overall borrowing capacity and everything else. So, I thought, we could put restaurants in a mall. We do whatever it takes, so.
Hey, that sounds great. Kyle and I, we can win a big game. One of the things I wanted to see, Scott, is the stadium or somewhere around the stadium. Can we have like a sports bar? We could be open year round, where that way guys like Kyle and I can go to after the game. We can hang out. No, Bubba Rosenbaum would be.
You could do it at Talmadge Tower, the Talmadge Tower Sports Bar.
I'm all about raising revenue. Okay, we need to give all of our fan base reasons to come in there and spend money. I'm all about that 100%. So you mentioned about having a practice facility be a tailgating facility, and look, we need to monetize everything, and think in that mindset, and I'm 100% about that type of thing. So,
hey Scott,
obviously we're athletics based here, so we're athletics heavy with the questions. We'll get to some other topics, but you mentioned being in legislation earlier this week or last week in the General Assembly, and thanking them for passing the budget with funds for Brody.
Mm-hmm.
Are conversations happening now with our politicians, our elected officials? Look, conference expansions happen now, and I think it's going to be a big shakeup over the next 5 years. And I think there could be a legitimate breakaway where you see your so-called power leagues, 3 tiers to Division I. Right now we have FBS, FCS, a potential third higher tier. Is there conversations with our politicians saying, hey, we're one of the biggest universities in the state. We need to make sure if this happens, you guys need to do everything you can to make sure East Carolina isn't left behind when the ACC expands or whoever expands to, are those conversations we're having with elected officials?
Well, I wouldn't. At this point, the only conversations really around anything have been budget related. But let me tell you my perspective on that, my thoughts about that. We're right along the same line. So you have a few. I mean, we're a member institution of the University of North Carolina. Okay, the same as North Carolina State University is, the same as the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So as things happen, those members and that all of this is overseen by the Board of Governors. Okay. And we all have this, and Appalachian State and Charlotte and all these other institutions are in this. And I think absolutely when we come to this, as things start to develop, I think we need to look at every angle we absolutely can, be it legislative in the state of North Carolina, all the way up to Washington, to the Board of Governors, to the administration in Chapel Hill, to everywhere we can, to play every angle we can to make the point that we belong there, and we're a major institution and we belong in any conference that plays. And quite frankly, this continuance of shrinking down the pool in higher athletics around athletics, I think is borderlines on collusion, and at some point in time may end up in court. That's just my personal opinion.
I've been banging that drum for years.
Yes, and I think there's no question that as we move forward with this, if we have to make every phone call and make every relationship we can with every outlet that we have to make, we will do it. Now, I don't know if that ensures anything. I don't know if that can change the outcome of anything, but I just want East Carolina University to have a seat at the table and not be on the menu.
Speaking of conference realignment, with the time we have remaining with you, as far as that's concerned with the American and obviously what's going on with the Big 12 with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, we've talked about it a lot because that's been the topic that everybody wants to talk about, and that's what we're about here on the show on the Sports Objective. What are your thoughts about, we've been proposing, we love the idea of the merger with American and the remaining 8 left in the Big 12. We think that that's the smartest move for East Carolina. That would get us, you were talking about the seat at the table. You put the 2 conferences together, that pretty much guarantees it's going to be a quote, I hate the term power league, but I feel like it would.
Yeah, all this is up in the air, and I'll tell you, my sense of this is that nobody knows exactly how this is going to shake down. So we're all kind of guessing, but I tend to agree with you. I mean, the question is, what does the Big 12 do? They try to go over and merge with some of the Pac-12, And then you have to, ask, is Stanford University and UCLA, do they really want to align themselves with Oklahoma State?
Not gonna happen.
We think some universities around here call themselves elite. That is a whole different ball game. Would they want to do that kind of thing, and do they try to pick off one or two teams? What happens on how all this shakes out? And quite frankly, it may come down to what ESPN wants. And so we're early in this. I think it's going to be a major restructuring in what happens. But I think, in the American, around the universities that we are, and you guys were old enough to remember, or been around long enough to remember, it used to be all about TV revenue, right? And how many television, and we have, all the major markets we have. The largest television market in the SEC is Vanderbilt. They put a quality product on the field. People want to watch it. But, we'll see how this shakes out. This is early, but I'm with you. I think a merger between the two, and maybe add a Boise State or, something like that to the mix, get to 29-9. I think, Kyle, you had some ideas, probably thought through the numbers a little bit faster than I have. But, it's going to be presidents and ESPN, I think, that make the ultimate decision. But we'll see. It's getting ready to get fun to watch. I assure you that.
Scott, speaking of numbers, what's enrollment looking like this year during the we're still, in the midst of COVID. How's enrollment this year at East Carolina undergrad?
Yeah, I think we're going to be good. We'll know the number in a couple of weeks with the whole census cutoff date and time period. But all the numbers look to be about flat over last year, which is a good number. We're down a little bit from the all-time high, but the strength of ECU from a recruitment standpoint is getting people on campus and seeing the place and getting them enrolled. We haven't been able to do that in 2 years. So the fact that we're hanging in there is really solid. And I think, I think we'll be in a good shape from an enrollment standpoint. The long-term challenges in enrollment are a whole different matter. All of higher education is getting ready to go through, some big turmoil there as far as that's concerned, because just simply the number of people going to college in the next 7 to 10 years is going to be dramatically less than what it was the last 10. Okay, so, how do you combat that? And I know that, you can either kind of shrink down and kind of manage your way through that or grow your way through that. And I know my opinion about it, and it's the same as Dr. Rogers, and that's we can grow through that. And I think we are absolutely positioned well to do that. Now, we may end up doing that with a lot of non-traditional kind of thought, more of the older student, the non-traditional student to come back. That's going to be how you're going to grow in the future. But this year, I think we're going to be in good shape. We're not at an all-time high, but I think we're flat year over year. That's the early indication that I get.
Scott, I want to ask you something that we were talking about difficult times, and you talked a little bit about it. Let's talk about the debt, something that athletically has been really hard, and a lot of reasons why, but one of the reasons has been in the last year or so with COVID, people not being able to go to baseball games, football games, even basketball. With Coach Tooley, who we love a lot, the team was 7-1, and where basketball, all of a sudden COVID hits, and that hurt us. That hurt us as far as fans coming to games for basketball. But
and the debt from the tower also.
Talmage Tower and COVID. But what about athletically, the debt? How do you see things, and how do we get out of? I know that's a hard question with athletics. It seems to always be in the red, but how do you get out of the red as far as athletically?
Create revenue.
Yeah, I
know that, but I'm asking how.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the first thing, our model. You look at other member institutions in the American, and the sustainability report that came out about a year or so ago. Okay, there was a lot of conversation around that, and and how what things would cash flow and what things would not cash flow, and they even did a 30-year projection. And I remember thinking, look, they're kind of projecting things based on current numbers, and sure, if we win 3 games in football every year next 30 years, it won't be the tower that bankrupts us. Okay. You go to Florida, they can simply write a check, and other states can write a check from their, this has been talked about quite a bit, from their university funds to fund athletics. So we have higher student fees. I hate to have higher student fees. Okay. This is, we need to be cognizant of cost of admission. You'd be better just to double your student base. But, the biggest thing that we need to have, I mean, literally, we need butts in the seats. That's our business model. And we also need to understand that probably even in the best of times when things are rolling well, we're probably going to run a $5 to $7 million budget deficit in athletics. And we need to fund that with the university and auxiliary funds that are not state allocated funds. Okay. And that's the cost of being in the American. Now, when that report came out a year or so ago, and it was very, very telling. And it said that, we spent $40 million, $43 million in athletics. We were in the bottom tier of the American. Now, to get to the next tier in the American, we would have to increase our expenditures in athletics by 50% to get to $60 million. And to get to the top tier in the American, you'd have to double the athletic expenditures. Okay, that's what we're competing against. So we're in a tough position. We got to think our way through this. But yeah, I mean, we've got the debt on the towers, no question. And if it's empty, it doesn't cash flow. Neither does the boneyard that we own still owe some years left on the boneyard. If there are no students in there, we're not paying for it, right? So, the number one thing is getting people back on campus, winning football games, filling the stadium, selling, getting ticket revenue going. And that's the number one thing we have. And, last year was just kind of the worst thing that could happen to us at the time, but we managed our way through it. So if we can get through last year, we'll turn things around and we'll go in places. So I think the future is bright.
Scott, I had a question, and then we're going to shift on to the Vidant, the Vidant ECU merger. One question I had for you that's I've heard other fans, and something that I know that maybe some people would not like. Is there a way that we could generate revenue by having the stadium rights name, like for if it's Vidant Health, if it's Bill Clark Holmes Stadium, or have a way we could get some extra revenue? And I love Dowdy Ficklin. I love, obviously, the families there. So I'm not trying to diss them, but that's something that's been proposed. I've heard on different Pirate fans. I just want to get your take on it.
Yeah, obviously, if we can raise some money, we'll name all kinds of stuff over there, but there's some contractual obligations that I don't know all the details of about, a certain naming right on you have the stadium, you have the field, you have the athletic complex, but there are certainly things that can be done, hopefully a new practice facility, those kind of things for naming rights. So, we need to explore all avenues to raise revenue.
In a new scoreboard, you could put somebody's name on the back of the new scoreboard.
Amen. Please get a new scoreboard, please.
It's crazy. That thing is probably, it was 08, 09 when it was built. So 2010, it's 11 years old this year. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, all of a sudden that thing's dated, and it was, the other one before that was way so dated. And then this one, it doesn't take long for those things to get dated, does it? So.
No. Bubba, I know you wanted to talk about Vidant.
Yeah, let's get to that. That's something that we had talked about off the air a few weeks ago, Scott. Just awesome news. Just unbelievable. Just talk about ECU Health and Vidant merging, I guess, nearly 2 months ago now.
Yeah, and so we had the announcement with Vidant. ECU is one of the only medical schools around that I know of that doesn't own the hospital. And so when that happens, you have to rely on outside forces and outside sources, for revenue. And that's always been a challenge to our medical school. And the alignment from the integration, the practice management integration and the health care integration puts us in a position from a revenue standpoint, I believe, that will be able to support our medical school in a very good way going forward. So Vidant and ECU are in that integration, the practice management integration now. That's going to take some time to go through. Mike Waldron and his team over there are very good and tremendous. And a part of that is the branding. What's the new hospital? What's the new naming going to be? And so no assets or anything like that are changing hands, but it's about how do we build, and how do we manage the healthcare and integrate those two practices, because there wouldn't be, Vidant wouldn't be where they are without East Carolina University, and ECU's Brody School of Medicine wouldn't be where it is without Vidant. And putting those two together, I think, really solidifies the stability. And you couple that with a new Brody School of Medicine building and building out the number of doctors to the full complement of 120 that we can in the years forward is going to change the game and how we address healthcare, not only regionally, but in the state of North Carolina. So that was a huge first step. But with the board, Vidant, ECU are going to be working through that over the course, of the next year or so on into that. That's going to be a constant issue that we're going to deal with. But that was a huge first step. And I was glad that they were that Vern Davenport was a part of that. He's been a part of that process for a long time, but before he was able to step off. So that was a big deal.
Scott, do you ever see down the road, who knows, 10, 15 years from now where the university is in a position to purchase Vidant?
We can look at that in the future. I think that the integration, I think, is first and foremost. I think from folks looking outside in, that's what it will appear because, the branding will be, ECU. So we'll see how we end up in that position. And the real question is, how do you raise money to reinvest and how do you do that? And using their balance sheet, using other balance sheets. And, that's going to be fun to play out. And then all the details are going to go. But the good thing is we're all talking about how we're going to do big and great things. And, certainly that kind of stuff could be on the table.
How do you, and you just brought up something interesting to me. You said the branding going forward, maybe ECU, and I'm assuming you're talking about with the hospital, perhaps a name change.
That's right.
If it becomes, ECU hospital, whatever you would call it, and you're not owning it, if there's some negativity surrounding Vidant and it's got the ECU name on it and we don't own the hospital, that could reflect poorly on the university. How do you handle that?
Well, I mean, you always have shared governance throughout this, and if you look at other systems in the United States, it's run similar, where you have kind of the governance that's over the hospital operations, and then the governance that's over the university that's affiliated with that. So that's always going to be an issue, but you'll have that oversight on both levels, and both of those boards coordinate together to do it. But obviously, that can be some of the risk that it can be argued that it could be the other way too, right? So
Sure.
I think working together will be a whole lot better off than being apart.
Yeah.
Dave, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. We say the toughest question for last. Will the Pirates go bowling this year?
Yes.
All right. So definitely we're going bowling. So we'll be able to hang out and have a huge tailgate there somewhere in December. We're going to be tailgating. So you heard it here first on the Sports Objective, ladies and gentlemen.
December. Why can't you play in January?
January. Oh, you're going even bigger.
Come on.
Hey, I like your
go.
I like the way you're thinking. Thank you so much.
New Orleans in a long time. So
no doubt. That sounds good to me. It's been 3 years for me. I'll be glad to go back to New Orleans. Wow. Scott, thank you so much for your time. It's been an honor to have you on as chairman of the trustees. Appreciate your hard work. I know you do a lot. People don't realize how hard it is to be working and being a part of the trustees. Things are going well. I'd love to have you back on again soon.
Absolutely. And thanks to the good work you guys do. It's a pleasure to hear you. I love the passion about the Pirates, and we're all Pirates as it is. And look, it's an honor to be on the trustees, an honor to serve as chairman, and look forward to a good year this year. And if there's ever anything I can do for you guys, let me know.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott.
All right, Bubba, very excited. We have not only one great guest, but a patiently waiting guest, right?
Yeah, we've had this guy on the program before. UCLA great, played some in the NFL. I'm very excited to talk some Pac-12, NIL, among other topics. Welcome back into the program, Charles Arbuckle.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Good. Thank you, Charles, for being a little bit over running behind tonight. But thank you so much for your patience. And very excited, man. We've got a week away from week 0. What are your thoughts? You're a UCLA guy. I know, but you're a college football analyst, a football guy. How are you feeling about how things are? It's been a crazy summer, but wherever you want to start, but how are you feeling right now about football?
I'm feeling good about it. I just hope we can get to the season and not like I was fortunate last year to call some games out west, and then the Big 12, the Mountain West Conference and Big 12 live, and a lot of guys weren't able to do that. So this year, I'm already slated to get LSU game September 11th, and then a North Carolina State game the week after. And my concern is, with this Delta variant creeping back up, I hope it doesn't put us back in the studio or where we can only call games that way, because I really want to see a season where teams get an opportunity to play. And it's going to be interesting also to watch some of these FCS schools who have just played end up playing some of the teams that maybe only played 5 games, like in the Pac-12, or however many they played, and then other teams that played a full season. So it's going to be a little bit chaotic early in the year. And what's interesting, the very first week of the season, I'm going to see UCLA play LSU because I'm going back to our Coach Donahue's memorial. But then I'll see him the next week. So hopefully we get to a season and we get to talk about something other than name, image, and likeness, which, I think is great. But I also think that there needs to be some, tempering of it. I don't know how that's going to happen. I think the NCAA just said, hey, look, you guys want this. We're going to throw our hands up and go manage our championships, and you handle the rest of it.
I wholeheartedly agree with you as far as ready for some games to be played. So it's not just talk about NIL and what's going to potentially happen. But before we move on and do some of that, I do want your thoughts on NIL with you having played at UCLA, you played in the NFL. How do you think the NIL, some of these deals that players are making with various companies, how do you think that will impact the locker room?
Here's what I'll say. I mean, JT Daniels is a good example of what I felt like if Troy Aikman, who I got to play with a couple of years, and he was battling Rodney Peete for the not only the Rose Bowl, but the Heisman Trophy, Troy would have probably had a lot of guys drafting off of him in a good way, because that was just the kind of guy he was. If you have a selfish guy that's a me guy, then you're going to have some issues in the locker room. But that happens whether they get NIL or not. I think the other key part we have to look at is how do the coaches manage it? Because they're going to take the lead. And I think the one thing we're going to see is guys aren't accustomed to being called out because they don't play well, and they're college kids. No, man, if you're making money and you got some sponsorship dollars, you better be ready to get your big boy pants on when you fumble or when you drop the rock in a game, a game that's deciding. If you can get to the conference championship, those things gonna matter. And I don't think kids realize that until they're in those situations. It's a lot more stuff to manage. And I'm looking forward to watching that more so than anything. The locker room's going to be fine because it happens the way it's supposed to happen. There's going to be some guys that hate each other if they weren't getting paid. The money is going to bring something else to it, but I'm more wondering how it's going to impact guys, and they don't know that yet because they've never had a shoe deal. They never had gloves. They've had those given to them, but they haven't had to play for them, and a company saying, look, we really want to sponsor you because you're a good player. If you can't play worth the crap, then that NIL doesn't mean anything.
You make a very good point, Charles, and something I had talked about, in the past is you keep asking to be treated like an employee more and more and more. Be careful, you're going to be treated like an employee.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad the kids are able to monetize themselves, but I think we need to be careful with the path we're going down. And also, and I hope all the universities, and I hope the kids are listening. I hope there's good advice from these universities. You're going to have some kids, that are coming from backgrounds where they're not used to having money. And you take a kid, when he's done with college and 23 years old and signs with the NFL and suddenly he's got money. That's one thing. But you got an 18-year-old and now he's got maybe 50 to 100 grand. That's a lot of money to an 18-year-old who maybe ain't used to having very much.
Well, I've always said they should be incentivized to graduate. I was fortunate to go to a school where, I didn't always do what I was supposed to do academically my first few years, but I was smart and I figured that out. And then once I started getting hurt, knowing I was going to play in the league, I then said, okay, I have to have a degree. And a few years ago, I decided to go back and get my MBA. And I wish all schools, this name, image, and likeness is great, But I really wish there was an opportunity because there's some really smart kids that won't ever play in the league. They won't ever get a chance to do that. But they may be our next lawyer, maybe our next doctor, maybe our next, surgeon, rocket scientist. Or they may just be a guy that can contribute. But there's some very intelligent guys that play, and Myron Roll is a good example of that, going to, becoming a Rhodes Scholar. So I think what I want to see, since education is so expensive, that the schools say, okay, look, we love this name, image, and likeness, but if you graduate, we're gonna do something for you in the way of an annuity to pay for your school, the next level. And I mean, maybe I'm being facetious, but I think if we're going to college and we're letting guys finish early, right? They can finish in 2.5, sometimes 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, then let's make sure if they finish school, there's some reward on the other end, because we always say, well, you're getting a free education. You are, man, but you're giving a lot of your body, and you're giving a lot of time where you can't work. That's just the way athletics has been driven. And I would love to see all those years that you're running around on the field getting compensated for it in some way, shape, or form. Name, image, and likeness is great, but you still need to know what to do with that money once you get that money.
Yeah, I agree. And it may have actually, what you're talking about may have some added benefits to some universities. It may cut down on grad transfers. Somebody graduates and has a year or two eligibility left. Instead of moving on from a group of 5 to a power 5 school, they may stay at that group of 5 school if they know they're going to get graduate school paid for at that university. Another thing with name, image, and likeness that I thought would have been a good idea, and I guess you can't put the water back in the bottle, so to speak. I thought it would have been a good idea if we were going to do this to allow the kids to make money, but maybe only get a percentage of it, and the other percentage they get once they're done with school. Like maybe they get 30% now.
I totally agree.
Yes.
Totally agree. I think you're spot on, because Charles Arbuckle at 19, 20 years old, good Lord Almighty, that money's all gone. I mean, and I have people listen. Look, my first year in the league, I was smart enough to know, okay, I got to get somebody that can help me with this, and I wasn't making some of the money that they're making now. So only imagine in college, a 17, 18, 20, 19-year-old kid, man, that would have been.
Do we lose Charles, or is that my end?
Yeah, it sounded kind of like robotic there for a second. Maybe we'll get him. We'll see if we can get him back. We lost him for there, but certainly, guys, you're right, Kyle. That's something that I've preached about, an annuity to graduate, and that you put that money they're earning from. For example, I've always said about Kyle, I've always felt bad about jersey sales, and it has the name of, let's say it says Barber on the back of it, and you're a great football player, and you graduate, you get all that money. You get all that money that you've generated,
sure,
or a percentage of the money. Some goes to the university, some goes to Kyle Barber, and that's something that I've always felt strongly. That part, I definitely agree that jersey sales. The other thing is, if Kyle Barber can go out on a Saturday to a car dealership in Greenville and sign autographs and make a couple grand or a few thousand, I have no problems with that. I really don't. I've never had an issue with that.
No, I agree. I just, I think what we were talking about with Charles, if they could only have a percentage of that money now, and then the rest, whether they graduate or not, if they make the money when they're done with school, it would be. I think it would be a benefit to them in the long run, because you're not. Look at student loan debt. How many of us? My wife. I'm gonna talk about her here. She had all her classes paid for through grants and scholarships. Yet she took endless student loans just to have the cash in her pocket. Well, I don't have to pay them back till I graduate. Yeah, guess what? So we make bad financial decisions at 18 to 21.
No question about it, and maybe even later. But anyway, we're getting
no doubt, Dave.
We're getting Charles back. Welcome back, Charles. We're glad to have you back, Charles. And we were talking about name, image, and likeness, and we were talking about that very thing of. I'm saying, Charles, to give an example of Kyle Barber, it always bothers me when you see a school and they have a jersey and they have Arbuckle, they have Barber on the back of it. I always felt like they should those players should get a percentage of that, but they should get it at the end of their once they graduate, put it in annuity, and they get a percentage of their. Speaking of name, image, and likeness, something on a jersey. I've always felt if it had the last name of a player, they should get a cut of it. But when they graduated,
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it was amazing to see the first time I saw my jersey in the stands. I was just, blown away. And then I started thinking, hey, I'm making money off of it.
yeah,
It just kind of gets you thinking, how could you capitalize? And I agree with you, some kind of annuity, some kind of way that you can put that in a mutual fund. I talked about that years ago, before this name, image, and likeness, because there are some guys that are going to make a whole lot more money than others. But no matter what, I think it's just still the whole part of it. If you're marketable, like a Johnny Manziel, not that he didn't need the money, but
I think we lost Charles.
With schools, you have to make sure that you're in a position that you give the player all the best benefits that you can, because a lot of stuff coming in to those universities.
No question, Charles. I wanted to ask you, as far as with Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC, you're part of that Pac-12 family, being from UCLA. Do you think the Pac-12? Do you think they're going to take like the rumors of Oklahoma State and maybe a TCU to
Texas Tech?
Texas Tech. Yeah, those two rumors. There, two schools to the Pac-12.
Oklahoma State makes sense. Texas Tech, not so much. I mean, here's the thing, guys. Think about that year. What was it, 2010, maybe 2011, when Texas, Oklahoma State, and A&M were thought to be going to the Pac-12, which would have been 16. I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, that to me, when that didn't happen, it set off a chain of events, and you can clearly see the SEC growing and doing the things that they're doing. So I don't know how much you get with Texas Tech. As much as I love the Red Raiders, I think they're a great program. They've done a nice job out in Lubbock. I think Oklahoma State makes sense, but I just don't know about Texas Tech. What value you get? And I know it's Texas, but West Texas, y'all, is a lot different than Southeast Texas or North Texas, where Dallas is. I'm from there, and I can tell you, I never went to Lubbock until last year when I called the game, because it's so far out there in West Texas.
Now, what about TCU? With them being a small religious university, private school, would they even fit in the Pac-12? You get the Dallas-Fort Worth media market.
Yeah, I think TCU would, because you think of what their plight and where they've been, the WAC, the Mountain West. I mean, I can't remember all the conferences they've been in. And they, Gary Patterson has done a nice job of building. Yeah, Conference USA. I mean, pick a conference where TCU didn't play in, right? So, no, I think TCU brings a lot to the table. U of H has kind of been that swing team. They really, people are attracted to Houston, but not the University of Houston for whatever reason. And it's always boggled my mind, because you talk about a big media market, whether if you had either one of those schools. And, U of H has really become, it used to be a commuter school when I was growing up. And they played great football, but it wasn't the same as it is now, where, you go on that campus and you look at that stadium. I was fortunate enough to call the very first game on that on-campus stadium. They've done a great job, and their alumni base is pining for an opportunity very similar to what you guys talking about with the Trump break group in a state like Texas.
Yeah, Houston would do well in whether, and I think they're going to get some kind of opportunity. Even if it's just the remaining Big 12 schools merging with the American or some teams from the American, I think Houston's going to get some kind of opportunity to at least up their profile at least a little bit.
No question, Charles. I had a question as far as
school that would have been.
We got some lag with Charles.
Yep.
Program that until all the things that happened to them, right? And I think those are the kind of things you look at, and that's put a mark on Baylor, where you don't look at them as a program that you really want. They're still struggling with some of the things that they've lived through and some of their own doing. I'm not saying to feel sorry for them, but some of the things that they allowed to happen and whatever else that has probably hurt them in some of this realignment talk.
Charles, can you see the what we've been talking about a lot in your show this summer about a merger between the American and the remaining schools and the 8 schools remaining in the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, America is probably the strongest non-power 5, right? And the Big 12 needs something. I know there's been some talk about the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-12 maybe. I mean, the Big 10, and there's been a lot of different rumors that you've heard. But one would give them a lot. I mean, you would just have just as much strength if you got the American. The American is a really strong conference right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there. If the Big 12 can drop their ego of the American not being considered a power conference, I think if you put the two leagues together, I think you'd have a heck of a league. You look right now this season, you'd have matchups like Cincinnati and Iowa State, Oklahoma State, UCF. I mean, there's TCU, SMU is already a rivalry. There's some intriguing matchups there.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. It makes sense. I think you guys were talking about ECU earlier, and it just made me think of UAB, right? UAB, you guys are further along in the process than UAB, but they have opportunity. And I agree with you, being one of the larger schools in the state of North Carolina. Charlotte has tried to come on the scene. We know with App State, but ECU has always been one of those schools that you just think it's kind of a sleeping giant, right? Ready to, think and show what could happen. Coach McNeil did a nice job there. It's just I've looked at East Carolina similar to IU. Spent a lot of time in Indiana and thought that a school like that with great, medical center and all the other things. You're out in Eastern North Carolina. How do you make yourself more marketable and attractive for those opportunities? I don't know. I mean, and that's one thing that you guys know better than me, but it's always one that I look at when I drive out to Eastern North Carolina and I see the school and the resources that I see out there.
No, I agree with you, Charles, and I've always thought that if East Carolina was able to get in some kind of power conference and where we were on equal playing field with the ACC schools in this state, East Carolina cares more about football, with apologies to Appalachian, than any other school in the state. We're not a basketball school; we're football first. And I believe that if we were able to be on a level playing field with the ACC schools, I think the same thing would happen to East Carolina that happened to Virginia Tech. We would take over this area in football. But you got to be in a power conference for it to happen.
Yeah. Or you have, or you have to have something that makes, find a way, like what we're finding now is that the Cincinnati story is great, but it's not just a story. They're doing it every year. You look at UCF, but you're in the state of Florida. I think there's really good football in North Carolina too, though, and South Carolina. And I think, living here long enough, I'm a Texas guy, but the two states combined, there's some really good football being played. There's a lot more guys that are moving back home, or some people finding North Carolina or South Carolina and living in the Carolinas and raising their kids, where you're having the ability to get some of those top-notch recruits. And oh, by the way, East Carolina, you can get right up to Hampton Roads and get some talent, which we all know is some guys that can of football.
No, yeah, absolutely, you're right, and that's why, when all these schools were moving up a couple years ago, when Old Dominion moved up, I really had high expectations for them, and I still do long term, but they've really underperformed, in my opinion, at the FBS level. I don't think they believe in themselves as a university of what they could be. That is a talent-rich area, and they have a fan base already.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, and those are the things that you see. It's interesting when you look at football. It's still a regional sport, but we got to look at it from a national level of where things are. And so, going back to the Pac-12, what you said before, Pac-12 has do well, but if you're a non-factor in ball, then it doesn't help you.
Yeah, I think we.
The
Yeah.
name USC.
Charles,
Yeah, still there?
we're still here. You're breaking up a bit on us. But one of the things, kind of shifting gears to the Pac-12 on the field, we definitely want to talk about programs like Oregon, Washington, USC, Arizona State. But start off at home with you being a Bruin, Chip Kelly entering year 4. You've seen it in glimpses, and you've seen games like Mike Leach's final year at Washington State when the Bruins came from, 35 down, just an unbelievable game that ended up in the 60s. But you haven't seen it. So just talk about where you see things entering year 4 of Chip Kelly there in Westwood.
A lot of good skill guys. If they're rugged in the interior, offensive line is going to be really good. I'm not sure about the defensive line, and quite honestly, when you watch them sometimes on film, very unsound on the defensive from what they're doing schematically defensively. So I would hope that they're rugged because they're going to have to be against the LSU team, and Hawaii's going to challenge them as well. But I think if DTR can stay healthy and stop making some of the mistakes he's made in the past, they've got a really good chance to be pretty special because they can score the football. They're going to have a lot of talented guys from a skill position deal. But my one concern is that defensive line going to be able to hold up? And you'll see it early on. I'll be out there to see it live. If they can show against LSU, who is going to be, I think, really, really good this year because of how poorly they played last year, then I'll be a believer because you're going to get an early season test against a team that, is going to have some dudes. But I think the biggest thing with Chip is putting DTR in the right position and using some of those weapons offensively so you take some of the decision making out of his hands where he can't make bad decisions, but get him into a position where he's making plays, and then sometimes learn how to go with his feet and get down before anything happens to him. I think that's if he has a really good year, UCLA plays well. If he doesn't, then it's going to be interesting to watch what happens after that.
Let's stay right there in LA, crosstown rival with the Trojans. How do you see things going for Coach Helton's club?
I don't know, man. It seems like every year the USC faithful are looking for Clay to be gone. And here's what I don't understand about USC. Having played against them and watched them over the years and know a lot of their guys, I think the air raid is good, but if you're going to run the air raid, you better use some of those big old dogs you got up front. And USC always had big offensive linemen and they could run the football. That's what I haven't seen from them, the physicality. I think defensively they're supposed to be pretty good, but offensively, are they going to be committed to an air raid that's a physical air raid and not one that they're just spreading things out and throwing it all over the yard? Because they have some talented receivers, but when I think of USC, I think of guys that can run the football and, really pound you when they need to, and they haven't been able to do that. consistently. And I think that's been the knock on Clay, and that's been the thing that folks in LA, especially if they're SC fans, have been wanting. So what I'm interested to see is this, guys. The Pac-12 is really good when SC is good, when we are competitive, when Oregon is playing like they are with Mario Cristobal. They're going to be a physical team. When you have Washington has to be strong, and one or two of the Arizona schools. Then the Pac-12 tends to get more eyeballs on it. When you don't, and Stanford as well. I can't forget Stanford. But when you don't have those guys, those teams playing consistent, you then start to struggle with where are we going to get a team out of that conference that can actually compete in the postseason. And I think that's what's going to be interesting to watch with all those schools that are named. And then also there's going to be some upstart programs. Every year there is. Oregon State is supposed to be better. I don't know how good they're going to be, but they're supposed to have a pretty good ball club this year, which, is always every few years they rear their ugly head. Arizona, it's supposed to be a better ball club. Arizona State this year, I'm not sure with all the things that are going on with Herm and that coaching staff. I thought they were going to be a lot better ball club, but it seems like that's going to hurt them some this year.
Charles, I wanted to ask you, as far as big picture of the Pac-12, what is it going to take for the conference to break through and get in the playoff? I mean, Washington, I know they've been in the playoff, but what about other teams to break through, including your alma mater?
It just has to be a commitment to finding some of those guys that are going other places. If you're not going to be able to, you got to win up front when you get to the playoffs. When you go play Alabama, when you play any of the SEC schools, when you play Clemson, when you play Ohio State, we always talk about their skill guys, but I can remember going to the first college football playoff championship game and Zeke Elliott running through Oregon, and that Ohio State team was just they were physical. And I mean, I don't care what you look at, if you're a Pac-12 school, you better find a way to get a pipeline of those kids from American Samoa again, whether that's SC, because they've usually done a good job, or UCLA. But also Oregon has done that with, Penny Sewell. You see some of the guys. If you're not going to come to the South and get some dogs, you better find those guys out of American Samoa and the Polynesian kids. Because I tell you what, I mean, playing with those cats, that haka dance, they might look like they're playing around, but you want some dudes that'll knock you in the mouth, you better be consistently getting the Polynesian kids. And that's why, if you think back to these really great schools, Arizona would do it because Dick Tomey had the pipeline coming from Hawaii. He would go over and do camps, and he had those kids going to Arizona. Now, Arizona wasn't really good on offense, but when you played an Arizona team with Dick Tomey, you were going to get punched in the mouth, and it was going to be an all-day affair. You better put on your big boy pads. So I think if you ask me if I'm saying what can happen, some of those kids that now are coming to Clemson, DJ Ungalele, and you start seeing, keep those kids on those West Coast teams and let them move to some of the SEC, Big 12, other places. I think, to me, that helps you, and then go down and get some of the best talent down in the South. Like, if you're going to compete at that next level, you got to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah, Charles, not to get off on a tangent, but some of my earliest memories of Arizona football were those Desert Swarm defenses.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, I played against them. So, and this is the before the Desert Swarm guys. I'm talking about Chuck Cecil, Byron Evans. They had like 4 first rounders. Chris Singleton and his brother were they just flew around the football. They had another D lineman, I can't think of his name, who was a first round pick, played with the Raiders. When we played them, man, we knew we could beat them if we could score points, but it was if we could score points. And usually we'd get in the hole 18, 17, nothing, have to come storming back. But I've never heard as loud of a hit on a football field as Byron Evans hit Aston Green I don't know if it was my sophomore year or my freshman year. I mean, it was one of the loudest hits I've ever heard. And Byron Evans could bring it. So, and that was on the defense with Chuck Cecil, who would knock himself clean out at 180 pounds.
as far as the Pac-12 is concerned, with the new commissioner, there's some that I've seen in the media, and obviously fans of the Pac-12. They seem to be like in their, and I don't mean this as disrespect, in their own world when it comes to what's going on with the SEC and with Oklahoma and Texas moving. Is that like they're, I don't know how to ask the question, but just simply, are they forward thinking in conference realignment and expansion, or do you think they're going to just like say whatever happens, the SEC happens, and we're going to do our own thing?
Well, I mean, the problem is you haven't had a football guy in. I mean, Larry Scott was a tennis guy, right? He thought, you could do a lot of different things, and football was important, but it wasn't the most important thing. It seems like the new commissioner has a better understanding of what he has to do from a football perspective, and the conference that has to be your front porch. I mean, basketball is always going to be good in the Pac-12 because you got schools like UCLA with that history. You got Oregon schools, you got some other schools now that have been Arizona, always competitive from a basketball perspective. USC lately has played really well. But you guys all know, and we know this, football has to be what you put everything behind, because that's the moneymaker. And even the basketball programs that are disguised as football programs in the Pac-12 know that. So I think now you can't just say, hey, we're going to get kids to come on our campuses in LA because it's LA. You got to give them more than that. You got to say we're competitive and this is what we're doing. You're going to get a great education, but you're going to play for championships on the football field. And until you can do that consistently, I mean, we saw what David Shaw was able to do up at Stanford. He utilized that pool of kids with 75 kids or so every year that he could recruit, got the best 75. So now you're looking in the league and you're seeing those kids sprinkled across, like Christian McCaffrey and a host of others that have come in because they what they did is they did a nice job of not only getting talent, but developing talent. And that's one of the things that I haven't seen consistently across the Pac-12. We can talk about what your commitment level is, but if you're not getting kids to come in, whether they're a 3-star or a 5-star, and you're not developing them to be those guys that can make it to the next level or make you a championship level team. That's why Washington was so good, because Chris Peterson knew how to do that. He took the blueprint from Boise and took it to Washington. And that's why Washington had all those defensive guys. You think about the league now. Think of Buda Baker and the kid out of at LA with the Rams. I can't think of his name now. On defense and offensively, they were playing pretty good football. So to me, before I even start blaming the Pac or a commissioner, I have to look at the coaching staffs and say, what are you doing to develop your kids? So when they come in, I don't care if they have no stars at all. If they can play and you get them ready to play at the next level, then that's when you become a club that people will think like, yeah, this team is good, or that conference is good. Until you do that, you'll be chasing everybody else.
Charles, really appreciate your time this evening. We know you need to run, but enjoy the conversation, and we'd love to have you back on during the season. But before we let you go, plug your podcast and tell folks how they can follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, man, it's Chopping It Up with Buck. It started with COVID. I just started my first guest. I was talking to him before I got on here, Kevin Carter. And I was talking to Kevin and a couple of guys from ESPN, and we just started saying, what can we do to get through the COVID? That's when we, last March. And it's been great. It's called Chopping It Up with Buck. We usually tape every week. We've been off in a little bit of a hiatus. Had Thurman Thomas on. I've had Marshall Faulk, Troy Aikman. I mean, I don't like the name drop, but I guess I will for that. But check it out. Maria Taylor. I mean, we cover the gamut, man, and we have a good time. And what it is I know from working in television and radio, that's why I like coming on shows like this. You get a chance to really talk and have a conversation. And that's what we do. We find out about what made them tick, what got them to where they are, and just any stories that they want to tell. I think the art of storytelling has kind of gone away. So we try to bring it back on that show. And, you can find me at Charles Arbuckle. Pretty easy. I'm not verified yet. So if somebody wants to bang on Twitter about that, go ahead.
Well, Charles, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your patience and your time tonight with us. And like Bubba said, love to have you back on. We'll let you run. And good luck to you calling games. We'll look forward to watching you on TV this season.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
All right, take care, Charles. All right, drive safe. Bye-bye. All right, Bubba, what a great night. Two heavyweight guests there. And I know we have some roundtable topics before we leave. And two great guys here. And I appreciate Charles and Scott Early, the chairman of the Board of Trustees, with Scott Shook for sure. Bubba, lots of great stuff happening for East Carolina. And I know we have, of course, with the men's basketball non-conference schedule. I'm just so excited about Joe Dooley, year 4 for Joe Dooley 2.0, and a lot of great games, right?
Yeah, the East Carolina basketball schedule non-conference was released this afternoon, and we received that from Jody Jones. Does an excellent job as SID, the men's basketball contact. But we'll put this on the screen. Not the most readable format, but Pirates get things underway against South Carolina State on November the 9th at Minges Coliseum, and then you have on November 12th Canisius. And without checking the record books or the stat book, I am really not sure that the Pirates have ever played Canisius. So Johnny Gardner and I were discussing that a few weeks ago when we were wondering how the non-conference schedule was coming together. Then Game 3 for that opening 3-game homestand is Western Carolina, and this will be the first time the Pirates have played the Catamounts in several years as well. And then November 18th, one that we've talked about a couple weeks ago, at least on November 18th, going down to Myrtle Beach, the Myrtle Beach Invitational taking place at Coastal Carolina, and the Pirates get things underway against the Oklahoma Sooners. So an awesome opportunity there to take on a Big 12 opponent, soon to be SEC opponent. And then if the Pirates or when the Pirates play in the second round, they will either play Indiana State or Old Dominion. And then the Pirates also have a game with Old Dominion scheduled for November 30th. You also see there Coppin State, Gardner-Webb, North Carolina A&T, Liberty and Charlotte. That's a really big opportunity, not only because you're playing in an NBA arena, but playing a team like Liberty, a program under Coach McKay, who has won 30 games and made the NCAA tournament and won games in the NCAA tournament in recent years.
I'm just I'm tickled to death. I know that there's a lot of criticism, but Joe Dooley's done a great job, I think, with the program. And you look at this non-conference schedule, and then it excites me, Bubba. It's probably for him at the same time when you have a great, maybe not great, but for us, East Carolina basketball, I think it's a great schedule. And then when you factor in all those American games, there's a lot of excitement, I think, with those new players, the transfers coming in, and you have the high school guys that are coming in as freshmen. I'm just really excited about everything. It'll be great. Hopefully we can talk about in November with this whole COVID mess going on, that we can get rid of that, where we can see basketball games. You and I didn't get to hang out at basketball games this year, or football games for that matter, but especially basketball. We did a little bit with baseball, but kudos to Jody Jones. Appreciate him for all he's doing behind the scenes, and of course with Coach Dooley.
So many new pieces. You look at that opening 3-game homestand against South Carolina State, Canisius, and then Western Carolina. Definitely cannot take anything for granted. You know that.
Oh yeah.
As far as marking down W's with anything, much less Pirate hoops down through the years. But last year, you got off to a 7-1 start. You beat some of those opponents like a Radford, UNC Wilmington, and a Charlotte, programs the Pirates have really struggled with in recent seasons. And with that being the case, if we can do that once again, I like our chances to go down to Myrtle Beach Conway, I should say, the Myrtle Beach Invitational, and take on Oklahoma with a 3-0 record, and maybe we turn some heads down there at that Myrtle Beach tournament.
Indiana State has always had a great program. Of course, old CAA rival, where we're talking about Old Dominion of football, but Old Dominion always having good basketball teams. So that's going to be – that Myrtle Beach Invitational was a great fit, I think, for East Carolina. Sometimes you can get in tournaments that don't have a lot of flavor and pop, if you will, that term you hear in recent times. But that tournament, I think, is going to be great. It's a perfect fit for East Carolina, don't you think, my friend?
I wholeheartedly agree. This is a tournament we've been wanting to get in for a few years now since Coach Dooley returned. We were finally able to make it happen, and really hope we put our best foot forward when we go down there and take on the Oklahoma Sooners. Interesting nugget about the Sooners, Porter Moser, who led Loyola, the Ramblers, to so much success in recent years. He took over for Lon Kruger after Coach Kruger retired.
Yeah, I just I think it's great for us with everything, and we'll see how it plays out. But great schedule. And Bubba, I tell you what, one of the guys I've been looking forward to, hopefully we can have him on at some point, HV3. I know that he's really proud of him. How about I love that graphic you have for those watching, and whether it's live or certainly on archive, is HV3 Watch. And, he's so close, just like the Pirates, but he's so close to breaking through. And I believe he was ranked last week, 70th in the nation? In the world, in the PGA. I mean, he's doing very, very well. I don't know what it is this week, but he's definitely a top 100 player. 70th, I believe, last week. I don't know where he stands this week when he was in Greensboro, but certainly you got to be proud of him. How about today? What a great finish he had for the first day.
Yeah, he's playing up in Jersey City, New Jersey at Liberty National Golf Club in the Northern Trust. He fired an opening round 66 and is currently in third place. 7 birdies and 2 bogeys to card that 66. 5 under par for HV3 going into round 2 on Friday.
A great Pirate. We're really proud of him. And whenever we get a chance, I'll tell you one thing, Bubba. How cool would it be to see HV3? And we love, obviously, with watching, golf is a great, believe it or not, I love to watch golf, but a great one. And just to see him, I can't wait for him to break through. It's so close so many times. And it's not how he plays on Thursday and Friday, my friend. I think the Saturday and Sunday is what most in golf analysts I hear when I'm watching golf and everything. So Saturday and Sunday, he's definitely got to play better.
Yeah, Harold's had some excellent first and second rounds. He's put himself into tremendous position going into the weekend, but has not been able to, like you said, make enough putts. That's really, I think, what it's come down to. His putter has maybe felt him at times, but hopefully he'll be able to continue to sink a few more putts and continue to perform well in the other areas of his game, to give himself an opportunity to collect that first PGA Tour win.
It's going to be fun. And, of course, when is Pinehurst again hosting the Open? I should know that off the top, but I was just thinking about him. And
I do not recall.
It's coming up, and maybe the next couple of years. Anyway, Johnny Gardner probably knows. Johnny, but anyway, that's going to be just for any win right now for him. Once he breaks through, I have a feeling, though, he's going to rattle off several. He's so close. And good luck this weekend to HV3. Bubba, I tell you, one person I also pirate for baseball. How about Burley, man? We talk a lot about him, but he is really on fire. He's had a long, hot summer, and I'm so proud of him and not surprised that he's doing well with the talent that he is.
Yeah, Burley, like Cliff Godwin always tweets, Coach always says Burley's being Burley, and same thing with Franny. Franny in pro ball and down in the Florida Coast League, he has continued to be Franny. Franny's batting about 340 or 350 and really knocking the cover off the ball, having a lot of quality at bats and a couple home runs. I think maybe 6 or 7 runs driven in. And then Connor Norby was recently moved up from the rookie league to, I believe it's low A ball with the Shorebirds.
Yeah, he's another one that put a lot of time in and earned his keep, so to speak, at second base. And what a great job he did this year for the Pirates. Looking forward to a big season, certainly for the Pirates in 22. I tell you, Cliff Godwin never ceases to amaze me. Just unbelievable job in Greenville for sure. Do you have anything before we go, my friend?
Buy season tickets. We're here 2 weeks away from the season opener against App State, and make sure you buy those tickets as well. Plenty remain. let's have a representative showing and provide the Pirates with a neutral atmosphere and provide some energy at Bank of America Stadium and do everything we can, because I know App State will have a large contingent there, but Pirates are plentiful in the Charlotte area as well as Western North Carolina, and then the ones from Raleigh East. If your situation allows, you really need to hop in the car and get over to Bank of America Stadium, because folks all across North Carolina and throughout the region do that the rest of the year coming to Greenville.
I'll be there one way or another if I have to get a limo driver to drive me to and from with work commitments. But I will be there, and I'm very excited about it. Looking forward to it. But one final thing before we go, something we're watching, and I told you guys pre-show, is the North Carolina Senate, has legalized sports betting to move on. Now it moves to the House. So that's kind of a surprise, but yet I guess it's not, Bubba. We'll see how that plays out. But I think the vote was 26-19. I'm just surprised to see bipartisan support. When do you, Bubba, we're not going to talk politics, but I'm just happy to see something that has bipartisan support. It's nice to see that in politics with Democrats and Republicans. And Senator Perry out of Lenoir, the Republican, I want to give him a shout out for bringing this. I think it's good for North Carolina. I'm not going to waste any time. I know we're running long tonight, but that's a story it's unfolding, and we'll keep an eye on as it moves through the Senate, now moving to the North Carolina House.
That's something, obviously, I'm not a gambling man myself, but it goes on plenty. I mean, North Carolina residents are betting via apps, and just they're finding a way to place bets, so you might as well reap the benefits of it. So that's really all I have to say on that topic. But one thing I failed to mention, the season ticket giveaway. Ticket giveaway. Make sure you go and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and then after doing so, screenshot it, email it to us at thesportsobj@gmail.com, or go to our Facebook page. We have a pinned post. Reply there with that screenshot, or reply on Twitter with that screenshot, and put your name into the hat. We will draw for those 2 season tickets on August the 31st, a couple days before that season opener against App State on September 2nd.
And thanks for all the people that are subscribing to our YouTube channel. Appreciate everyone. One final thing, Bubba, want to remind fans, Saturday is another scrimmage for East Carolina. They have, I know that I've never been there, but the equipment sale, I want to mention about the media day. We're going to be at media day. We've got a lot of content we'll put out to you. But Bubba, I know that you're going to be there along with me. I guess we're going to fight over a jersey. We might rip it in half, but no, I'm just joking. But what about the equipment sale? You've done it in the past, right?
I have been there a time or two. Most of the time, due to my coaching obligations on coaching baseball in the spring, right, during those years, it was my parents hopping on the phone with me and telling me what was available and the prices. I was like, yeah, and grab me this, grab me that. Really picked up some nice polos from the ECU Pirate Club golf tournament, and then also some batting practice jerseys for baseball. Not really a big jersey guy, but like shoes, polos, some of the other things.
Great. So that's I believe that's 9-11. We'll have the scrimmage. This obviously, Dowdy Fickle will be there for that. Plus, we're going to be at media day, so it's going to be a long day. But hey, what would you rather do than to be like Bubba Rosenbaum, Dave Richmond? Come on out and have a great day. Every day is a great day to be a Pirate. All right, let's see. I want to thank Kyle from LaGrange Barber. Obviously, Scott Shook, the chairman of the board for the East Carolina Trustees. And how about Charles Arbuckle? He's such a great college football analyst, played for UCLA in the pros. Appreciate him very much. And until next time, we'll be talking to you from Greenville for ECU Football Media Day on Saturday. This is Dave Richmond here for the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? This is Udon Cheek, assistant track and field coach at East Carolina University. You are plugged into the Sports Objective Podcast. If you are a fan, you are plugged into the right place. And if you're really a fan, you will share that link. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode. Boom!